A millionaire returns from a trip and finds his wife screaming at the housekeeper in the living room. What seemed like a domestic argument reveals a cruel secret hidden inside the mansion. You cannot imagine how far greed can go when love is set aside. Before we continue, subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments which city you are watching us from. The rain fell heavily over Greenwich, Connecticut that Thursday night, as if the sky wanted to wash away all the city's sins at once. Grant Harrison held the steering wheel of his imported sedan firmly as he drove through the flooded streets of the wealthy suburbs, anxious to get home. His business trip to Chicago had ended a day earlier than planned, and he could hardly wait to see his father, Arthur, who was going through a delicate health crisis. At 40 years old, Grant had built an empire in the import-export business. He traveled constantly, closed million-dollar contracts, and maintained a routine that many would call enviable. But none of that mattered when he thought of the man who had raised him alone after his mother left when he was still a child. Arthur, 72 years old, had always been a rock, a man of character who worked his whole life as a carpenter to give his son everything he never had. Now weakened by advanced-stage pancreatic cancer, he needed constant care. As he passed through the electronic gate of the mansion in Belle Haven, Grant frowned. Even through the rain, he could hear raised voices coming from the main entrance. He parked quickly and got out of the car, the water soaking his Italian suit in seconds. What he saw left him completely bewildered. Victoria, his wife, was in the entrance hall gesturing aggressively at a woman he had never seen before. The stranger was visibly pregnant, wearing simple, wet clothes and holding a small, worn suitcase. Her eyes were red, as if she had recently been crying, and she looked exhausted. "I already told you that you need to leave here immediately." Victoria was practically screaming, her high heels clicking on the marble floor with fury. "I don't care if it's raining. I don't care if you're expecting a child. You cannot stay here." "Please, Mrs. Harrison, I just need one night," the pregnant woman replied with a trembling but firm voice. "I'll leave first thing tomorrow morning, I promise. I just need to rest a bit. I have nowhere else to go right now." "That is not my problem." Victoria crossed her arms, her perfectly made-up face contorted in an expression of contempt. "You've already taken too much advantage of the kindness of this house. I found you fainted at the gate yesterday, gave you shelter and food, and now you want to live here." Grant felt his blood boil. He interrupted the scene with a voice that echoed through the hall. "Victoria, what is going on here?" Both women turned, startled. Victoria quickly changed her expression, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Grant, darling, you're back early. I wasn't expecting you until tomorrow." He ignored his wife's fake enthusiasm and looked at the pregnant woman, who lowered her eyes in embarrassment. "Can someone explain to me what is happening?" Grant repeated, taking off his wet blazer. Victoria sighed dramatically. "It's an embarrassing situation, dear. This young woman showed up fainted in front of our gate yesterday afternoon. In my naivety, I thought it would be the Christian thing to help her. I gave her temporary shelter, but now she refuses to leave." "That's not true," the pregnant woman said softly, but with dignity. "You told me I could stay for a few days until I could get organized. I am not refusing to leave. I only asked for one more night because it's raining so hard and I have nowhere to go at this hour." Grant observed the woman more closely. Despite her precarious situation, she had an air of seriousness, of someone who had been through a lot in life. Her brown eyes showed fatigue, but also an inner strength that caught his attention. "What is your name?" he asked gently. "Maya. Maya Brooks." "Maya, are you all right? Do you need medical attention?" She hesitated before answering. "I'm a nurse, sir. I know how to take care of myself. I'm just a bit tired and without a place to stay at the moment." "A nurse?" Grant felt something spark in his mind. "What specialty?" "Oncology. I worked for 8 years at a private hospital in New York City, in the pediatric sector, and also with adults. I lost my job 3 months ago when the hospital went through a restructuring." The silence that followed was heavy. Grant looked at Victoria, who seemed visibly bothered by the direction of the conversation. He thought of his father, upstairs in the adapted bedroom, alone because the private nurse who had cared for him for months had abruptly resigned the previous week. Victoria said the woman was incompetent, but Grant had always found her extremely professional. "Victoria, can I speak with you in private?" Grant gestured toward the study. "Grant, you're wet. You should take a shower first." "Now, Victoria." The tone left no room for discussion. She followed her husband into the wood-paneled office, closing the door behind her. Grant turned to face her. Why are you treating that woman this way? Victoria rolled her eyes. Grant, she's a complete stranger. She showed up out of nowhere and now she wants to move into our house like it's hers. You said she fainted at the gate, a pregnant woman in the middle of the street. And you helped her, which was right. But now you want to put her out in the middle of a storm? She has already stayed too long. These people always take advantage of others' kindness. These people? Grant felt his anger grow. Do you hear yourself, Victoria? She is an oncology nurse, exactly what we need to take care of my father. Victoria's face hardened completely. No, absolutely not. Your father doesn't need another nurse. I take very good care of him. You? Grant couldn't hide his incredulity. Victoria, you barely even enter his room. And the nurse we had quit suddenly. We need someone qualified. I already said I'll hire someone else. I'm already in contact with an agency. And in the meantime, who takes care of him? Do you know how to give injections, manage medications, monitor vital signs? Victoria approached her husband, her voice low and controlled. Grant, do you trust me or not? I know what's best for your father. This woman is a stranger. She could be dangerous. She could have bad intentions. She is pregnant, exhausted, and unemployed. She doesn't seem dangerous to me. You know nothing about her. What if she's a con artist? What if she's lying about being a nurse? Grant walked to the window, watching the rain fall on the illuminated garden. He thought of his father, fragile from the disease, depending on care that Victoria was clearly not willing to provide. He thought of the woman out there, pregnant and homeless, and he thought of his wife's strange resistance to any outside help. I'm going to check her credentials, he said finally. If she really is a specialized nurse, I'm going to hire her temporarily to care for my father. She can stay in the vacant staff room. Grant, I don't agree with this. He turned to face her. I'm not asking for your agreement, Victoria. I'm informing you of my decision. My father needs proper care, and if this woman can provide it, I'm going to give her that chance. Victoria opened her mouth to protest, but something in her husband's expression made her back down. She knew that look. It was the same one he used in difficult negotiations, when he had already made a decision and nothing would change his mind. Fine, she said coldly. But when this goes wrong, don't say I didn't warn you. Grant went back to the hall, where Maya remained in the same spot, still holding her worn suitcase. She looked up as he approached. Maya, I would like to see your credentials if you have them. She nodded and opened her suitcase, taking out a plastic folder. Inside were diplomas, specialization certificates, her professional license, and letters of recommendation. Grant examined everything carefully. It was genuine. Maya Brooks was indeed a nurse with solid training and proven experience in oncology. My father is sick, Grant began, returning the documents. Pancreatic cancer, advanced stage. He needs constant care, and the nurse we had recently left. I would like to offer you a temporary position, if you are interested. Maya's eyes widened. Sir, I would be very grateful, truly. You will live here, in the staff quarters. You will have meals and a fair salary for the work. In exchange, I need you to care for my father with dedication and professionalism. You can count on me, Mr. Harrison. I promise I will do the best job possible. Great. I'll ask the cook to show you the room. Tomorrow morning, I'll introduce you to my father. Rest today, you look like you need it. Maya gripped her suitcase tightly, her eyes tearing up. Thank you so much. You don't know how much this means to me. Grant nodded and called Mrs. Gable, the cook who had worked in the house for years. While the older woman took Maya to the staff quarters, Grant went upstairs toward his father's room. He needed to see him, to make sure he was okay. The room was in semi-darkness with only a dim light beside the bed. Arthur was sleeping, his thin, pale face highlighted by the low lighting. Grant sat in the chair beside the bed and held his father's fragile hand. The skin was cold, the bones prominent. Dad, he whispered, I brought someone to take care of you. Someone who will do everything right, the way you deserve. Everything is going to be okay. But even as he said it, Grant felt a tightness in his chest. Something was not right in that house. The way Victoria had reacted, her resistance to accepting help, the sudden resignation of the previous nurse. Small details that separately meant nothing. But together they formed a puzzle he couldn't yet see in full. Outside, the storm continued, and inside that mansion, invisible forces were beginning to move, about to collide in ways no one could predict. In the staff room, Maya lay down on the simple but clean bed, her hand over her growing belly. She didn't know she had just entered a house full of secrets. She didn't know her presence would trigger a series of discoveries that would change every life inside. All she knew was that for the first time in months, she had a roof over her head and a chance to start over. And that, for now, was more than enough. Morning arrived, bringing a clear sky after the storm. Maya woke up early, even before the sun had fully risen, and took a quick shower in the small bathroom attached to the staff room. She put on a simple uniform she had brought with her, tied her brown hair in a bun, and went down to the kitchen, where Mrs. Gable was already preparing breakfast. "Good morning, dear." The cook greeted her with a warm smile. "Did you sleep well?" "I did, thank you. Mrs. Gable, could you show me where Mr. Arthur's medications are kept? I'd like to review everything before going up." The older woman's expression changed subtly. "Oh, the medicine is locked in a cabinet in his room. Mrs. Harrison is the one with the key." Maya frowned. It was unusual for medications to be locked away, especially when a patient needed doses at specific times. But she decided not to comment yet. Grant came down shortly after, already dressed in an impeccable suit. He greeted Maya with a nod and poured himself some coffee. "Ready to meet my father?" "Yes, sir." They went up together. Arthur's room was on the second floor, a large room with windows overlooking the garden. The hospital bed was positioned to allow the elderly man to see outside, and there was basic medical equipment around. The old man was awake, sitting up with the help of pillows. When he saw his son, his tired eyes lit up. "Grant, my son, you're back." "I am, Dad, and I brought someone to take care of you." Grant gestured for Maya to come closer. "This is Maya, a specialized nurse. She's going to stay here and make sure you receive the best care." Arthur observed Maya attentively. Despite the illness, his eyes still had that spark of intelligence that life hadn't extinguished. "A nurse, eh? Another one Victoria will send away in 2 weeks." The sentence fell like a bomb in the room. Grant grew tense. "What are you talking about, Dad?" "Son, I'm no fool. I've had 3 different nurses in the last 2 months. All of them left suddenly. The last one was excellent, took good care of me, but your wife didn't like her. Said the woman was pampering me too much, giving me too much attention." Maya and Grant exchanged a look. There was something very wrong happening there. "Mr. Arthur." Maya approached and sat in the chair beside the bed. "I promise I will do my best to stay and take good care of you. But for that I need your cooperation too. Can you tell me how you're feeling? Any pain, any discomfort?" The elderly man seemed to appreciate the kindness in her tone. "I'm very weak, miss. Some days I'm better. Others I can't even get out of bed. And there are these pains here in my stomach that appear out of nowhere. Are you taking your medications at the right times?" There was a hesitation. "I try, but sometimes I get confused. Victoria says that some days I don't need to take them, because too much is bad for me. And some days the medicine runs out early." Maya felt a chill down her spine. No oncologist would recommend skipping doses of controlled medication. It was a rigorous protocol, especially in advanced cases. "Mr. Arthur, do you have the schedule written down somewhere? An updated medical prescription?" "I did. Victoria kept it. She said she was going to organize everything properly." Grant was becoming increasingly uneasy. "Maya, what do you need to start proper care? I need to see the current medical prescription, check the available medications, check expiration dates, and establish an administration routine. I also need to know when the last consultation was and what the oncologist's instructions are. I'll arrange all of that. If you need anything else, let me know." After Grant left, Maya began a preliminary exam on Arthur. She checked his blood pressure, temperature, and examined his skin for bruises or signs of dehydration. What she found worried her deeply. The elderly man was visibly malnourished, with dry skin and cracked lips. He had small marks on his arms that could be from falls, but could also be from other things. His reflexes were slow, and his sunken eyes showed a lack of proper hydration. "Mr. Arthur, have you been eating well?" "Victoria says I need to follow a special diet. Light food, small amounts. Says it's doctor's orders." Another piece of information that made no sense. Oncology patients needed proper nutrition, not severe restrictions, unless there was specific guidance due to gastric conditions. "And have you been feeling hungry?" "I have, but she says it's psychological, that my body doesn't need that much food." Maya took a deep breath, controlling the anger that was beginning to grow. It was becoming increasingly clear that negligence was happening there. possibly intentional. She spent the rest of the morning talking to Arthur, learning his story. He told her about his years as a carpenter, about how he raised Grant alone after his wife abandoned them, about the pride he felt for his son. He also spoke about Victoria, always with caution, as if choosing his words carefully. "She's not a bad person, you know," the old man said at one point, "but she's very controlling. Wants to decide everything, have power over everything in the house. My son doesn't see it because he's always traveling, working." In the early afternoon, Victoria finally appeared in the room. She was impeccably dressed in a designer dress and perfect makeup. "Maya, I need to speak with you, now." They went out into the hallway. Victoria closed the bedroom door and crossed her arms, her posture clearly hostile. "I want to make a few things clear. I am the one in charge of this house. I have been taking care of Arthur for months and I know exactly what he needs. You will follow my instructions to the letter. Do you understand? With all due respect, Mrs. Harrison, I am the hired nurse. I need to follow medical instructions, not personal ones." Victoria's eyes narrowed dangerously. "You are here because my husband had a moment of weakness, but don't delude yourself into thinking you have any power. I can have you fired with a snap of my fingers." "Then why don't you?" The question caught Victoria by surprise. Maya continued, keeping her voice calm but firm. "If you have that much control, why didn't you send me away yesterday? Why did you allow me to stay?" Victoria opened her mouth but couldn't immediately formulate a response. Maya realized she had hit a sensitive spot. "I am going to take care of Mr. Arthur the best way possible," Maya proceeded. "I will follow proper medical protocols, ensure he receives appropriate nutrition and medication at the correct times. If that bothers you, perhaps you need to talk to your husband about the reasons why." Before Victoria could respond, Maya went back into the room, closing the door softly behind her. Her heart was beating fast, but she knew she couldn't show weakness. She was dealing with something bigger than she had initially imagined. In the following weeks, Maya established a rigorous routine. She gained access to the medications after insisting with Grant, who finally demanded that Victoria hand over the cabinet key. What she found there shocked her. There were medicine bottles with torn labels, others with expiration dates months past, and some packaging that clearly wasn't the prescribed medication. Maya began to discreetly photograph everything with her old cell phone, documenting every irregularity. She also noticed that whenever she administered the medication correctly, Arthur showed visible improvements. He regained some color in his face, could talk for longer, and even smiled more. But invariably, when Victoria spent time alone with him, the elderly man would worsen again. One afternoon, while organizing the medication, Maya noticed that a bottle of morphine was half empty, even though it had been opened only 3 days earlier. The prescribed dosage didn't justify that consumption. Someone was using the medication improperly or diverting it. She confronted Victoria about this subtly, asking if the doctor had changed the dosage. The answer was evasive, with Victoria claiming that sometimes the patient needed extra doses for pain, but Arthur denied feeling intense pain in recent days. Maya began to keep a hidden notebook where she recorded everything: medication times, patient reactions, Victoria's visits, changes in behavior, changes in medications. It was a meticulous record that could serve as evidence if necessary. One night, after everyone had already retired, Maya went down to get water and heard voices coming from Grant's study. She recognized Victoria's voice, agitated. "You need to fire that woman, Grant. She's interfering with everything, questioning my decisions, creating problems." "My father is improving, Victoria. For the first time in months, he has an appetite. He's more alert, talking. Maya is doing an excellent job." "That's temporary. She's over-medicating, forcing him to eat when his body can't take it. This is going to make everything worse." "The doctor came here yesterday and was impressed with the progress. He said the care is appropriate." There was a tense silence. Then Victoria changed tactics, her voice becoming soft, almost seductive. "Grant, darling, I only want what's best for your father. You know that. But this pregnant woman living here, having access to everything, it's not appropriate. What if she has bad intentions?" "Bad intentions?" Grant sounded tired. "Victoria, she's pregnant, working honestly, taking care of my father with dedication. What bad intentions could she have?" Maya didn't wait to hear the rest. She went silently back to her room, her heart heavy. Victoria was doing everything to get rid of her, and Maya knew it was because she was too close to discovering something the woman desperately wanted to keep hidden. The next day, while helping Arthur bathe, Maya noticed something that made her freeze. On the elderly man's arm, near the shoulder, there was a fresh mark. It wasn't from a fall. It was consistent with a hard pinch, the kind that leaves finger marks on the skin. "Mr. Arthur, how did you get this bruise?" The old man looked away. "I must have bumped into something. I've been so distracted lately." "Sir, please. I need to know the truth." He looked at her, his eyes full of a mixture of shame and fear. "Victoria has a strong temper sometimes. When I get stubborn, when I don't want to do what she says, she gets irritated. But it's not her fault. I'm the one who's difficult." Maya felt tears threatening to fall, but she held them back. "You are not difficult, and no one has the right to hurt you, no matter the reason. Please don't say anything to Grant. He already has so many problems, so many worries. I don't want to create more trouble." Maya promised not to say anything at that moment, but she knew she couldn't stay silent forever. What was happening in that house went far beyond medical negligence. It was abuse, pure and simple, and she needed to find a way to protect that fragile man before it was too late. That night, lying in her room, feeling the baby move inside her, Maya made a decision. No matter what happened, no matter how much Victoria threatened or intimidated her, she was not going to abandon Arthur. She was going to gather all the necessary evidence and, at the right time, expose everything. Because some battles needed to be fought no matter the price, and that one, Maya knew in her heart, was one of them. Maya's third week at the mansion brought increasingly disturbing discoveries. She had established a care routine that showed consistent improvements in Arthur, but it also put her on a direct collision course with Victoria. The tension in the house was palpable, like a storm about to break. It was on a Tuesday morning that Maya found something that would change everything. Grant had left early for an important meeting in the city, and Victoria was at the hair salon, her weekly 3-hour absence that Maya already knew well. It was in these moments that she took the opportunity to talk more freely with Arthur. "Maya, dear," the old man called while she adjusted the pillows, "you have been a blessing in my life. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't need to thank me, Mr. Arthur. It's my job, and I do it with great affection." "It's not just a job. You truly care. I see it in your eyes, in the way you take care of me. It's different." Maya smiled, but there was concern in her expression. "Sir, I need to ask you something delicate. Do you trust me?" "I do, my girl." "Then I need you to be honest with me. Does Mrs. Harrison have access to your finances, your bank accounts, investments, those things?" The old man's face clouded slightly. "Why do you ask that?" "Because some things don't make sense. Generic medicines when the prescription calls for brand names, supplies that run out very fast, appointments that are cancelled without justification." Arthur sighed heavily. "When I got sick, Grant asked me to give Victoria power of attorney to take care of my medical expenses. He travels a lot and thought it would be more practical. I agreed because at the time I thought it would be temporary." "And do you follow the expenses?" "I tried at the beginning, but she said I didn't need to worry about it, that everything was under control, that it was a lot of technical information that would only confuse and stress me out." Maya felt her stomach churn. She knew exactly where this was leading. "Mr. Arthur, do you have any documents saved? Old bank statements, anything like that?" The old man thought for a moment. "I have a folder with old papers in the closet there. I don't know if it's useful for anything." Maya opened the indicated closet and found a yellowed folder with documents from previous years. She began to leaf through them carefully. There were bank statements from when Arthur still worked, proofs of modest investments, savings bonds. They were the savings of a lifetime of hard work. What caught her attention was a paper with handwritten notes by Arthur himself, dated 8 months ago, right after the diagnosis. It was a detailed list of all his assets: the small house he had bought years ago and rented out, some government bond investments, a reasonable savings account. Beside each item, he had noted the approximate value. Maya took her phone and discreetly photographed the document. Then she continued looking and found something even more interesting: a letter from the former nurse, the one who had been fired before her. The letter was crumpled, as if someone had tried to throw it away and then rescued it. "Dear Mr. Arthur," the letter said in cursive, "I am very sorry I have to leave this way. I tried to warn Mr. Harrison about irregularities I observed, but I was prevented from speaking to him by Mrs. Harrison. I hope you stay well and that you find someone who takes care of you with honesty. I ask for forgiveness for not being braver, Claire. Maya put her phone away with the photos, her heart racing. She needed more proof, concrete evidence that could be presented to Grant irrefutably. In the following days, she intensified her investigation. She began to note not only medication administration, but also any strange movement. She noticed that Victoria frequently entered Arthur's room when he was sleeping, spent a few minutes rummaging through drawers and left quickly. One night, pretending to be asleep in her room, Maya waited until she heard Victoria go upstairs. Silently, she went out to a position where she could see the old man's room without being seen. She saw Victoria enter with a bag, stay inside for about 10 minutes, and leave with the bag visibly fuller. The next day, when Victoria left again, Maya checked the room carefully. A bottle of strong painkiller was missing, 2 packs of special bandages, and a new glucose monitoring device that had arrived the previous week. Items that could be easily sold or traded. But the most shocking discovery came when Maya managed, discreetly, to look inside Victoria's purse, which was left on the kitchen table. Among expensive makeup and imported perfumes, there was a receipt from a pawn shop. Maya photographed it quickly. The receipt showed the sale of a gold wedding ring and an antique watch. The description matched perfectly with items Arthur had mentioned keeping as family heirlooms. Maya knew she was treading on dangerous ground. She couldn't simply accuse Victoria without solid proof, and she also couldn't risk being fired before gathering everything she needed. She decided it was time to take a bold step. She looked for Mrs. Gable in the kitchen at a time she knew they were alone. "Mrs. Gable, can I ask you a delicate question?" The cook looked around nervously before nodding. "How long have you worked here?" 20 years, dear, since before Mr. Grant got married. "And in that time, have you noticed any change after Mrs. Harrison arrived?" Mrs. Gable lowered her voice. "A lot of change. Employees being fired for no reason, rules getting stricter and stricter. Mr. Arthur being isolated. I myself have been threatened with firing 3 times for silly things. But Mr. Grant doesn't let it happen because he knows I take care of the house with love. And the nurses who took care of Mr. Arthur before me," the older woman sighed. "They all left in a hurry. One of them, Claire, tried to talk to me before she left. Said she had seen very strange things, but that Mrs. Harrison threatened to sue her for slander if she opened her mouth. Do you know where I can find this, Claire?" Mrs. Gable thought for a moment. "She gave me a phone number once, said if I needed anything I could call. Let me see if I still have it saved." The cook went to her room and returned with a crumpled piece of paper. "Here, but be careful, girl. Mrs. Harrison is dangerous when she feels threatened." Maya thanked her and kept the number carefully. That night, when everyone was already asleep, she called Claire from a payphone nearby, as she didn't trust that her cell phone wasn't being monitored in some way. The conversation was revealing. Claire told her that she had noticed the systematic substitution of expensive medications for unapproved generic versions, the diversion of medical supplies, and worse, the emotional manipulation of Arthur, making him believe he was getting worse when he could actually be stable with proper care. "I tried to gather proof," Claire said with a choked voice, "but she caught me photographing documents. She threatened my life, Maya. Said if I said anything, she would invent that I was stealing from the house and put me in jail. I was afraid. I have a family to take care of, so I left and never looked back. But the guilt eats at me every day. Would you have the courage to give an official statement if necessary?" There was a long silence. Then Claire answered with a firm voice, "If you get real proof, if you manage to protect Mr. Arthur, I'll tell everything I know, but I need guarantees that I'll be safe." Maya promised to keep in touch and hung up with her head spinning with information. She had a witness, she had photos, she had detailed notes, but she still needed the final piece of the puzzle, concrete financial evidence. The opportunity arose when Grant arrived home, visibly disturbed. It was a Friday night, and Victoria had gone out to dinner with friends. Maya was helping Arthur take his evening medicine when she heard Grant go upstairs quickly. "Dad, I need to talk to you." "You can talk, son. Maya already knows everything that happens here anyway." Grant looked at Maya, hesitant. She made a move to leave, but the old man held her hand. "Stay, dear. You're part of this family now." Grant sat down heavily. "Dad, I got a strange call today from the bank where you have your account. They said there have been large movements in recent months, and they wanted to confirm if they were authorized." Arthur frowned. "Movements? What kind of movements?" "Cash withdrawals, transfers to accounts they didn't recognize as belonging to known medical institutions." In total, it's almost $200,000 in the last 6 months. The silence that followed was heavy. Maya saw the color drain from the old man's face. 200,000? But I didn't authorize any of that. I didn't even know I had that much money available. Grant ran his hand over his face, tired. The power of attorney you gave Victoria allows her to move your accounts. The bank called because they thought the pattern was strange, but technically she had authorization. Maya took a deep breath. It was now or never. Mr. Harrison, I need to show you something. She went to her room and returned with a notebook where she recorded everything, the phone with the photos and the notes she had made. Grant leafed through everything in silence, his face becoming increasingly somber. Is this true, Dad? Did she hurt you? Divert your medicine? Tears streamed down Arthur's wrinkled face. Son, I didn't want you to know. I was ashamed. I thought it was my fault that I was being difficult. Grant stood up abruptly, fury evident in every movement. This is not your fault. It never was. I should have realized. I should have paid more attention. Mr. Harrison, Maya said calmly, I know you're angry, but we need to act intelligently. We have proof, but we need more. We need official documentation from the bank, from the medical records, everything that can prove the fraud. Grant looked at her, and for the first time since they met, she saw genuine respect in his eyes. You're right. I'm going to call my lawyer first thing tomorrow morning. We're going to do this right within the law. That night, after Grant left, Maya stayed with Arthur until he fell asleep. The old man held her hand tightly. Thank you for not giving up on me, he whispered before closing his eyes. Maya smiled through her tears. I'll never give up on you, I promise. But she knew the storm was just beginning. When Victoria found out what was happening, the situation would explode. And Maya needed to be prepared to face whatever came, not just for herself, but for the fragile man who had trusted her with his life and dignity. The following weekend was one of unbearable tension. Grant had scheduled meetings with his lawyer and the bank manager, but decided to keep everything secret until he had all the information organized. Victoria couldn't suspect anything yet. On Monday morning, Grant left, saying he had work commitments. In fact, he was at the bank, accompanied by his lawyer, requesting detailed statements of all movements in his father's accounts over the last 12 months. What he discovered there left him nauseated. The withdrawals were systematic and strategic, amounts that weren't large enough to trigger automatic alerts, but added up to an absurd sum. There were transfers to accounts in the names of people Grant didn't know, payments to medical clinics that had never treated his father, receipts for expensive equipment that never arrived at the mansion. The lawyer, an experienced man named Mr. Sterling, analyzed everything with a grave expression. Grant, this is systematic and large-scale fraud. We're talking about financial crime, embezzlement, and possibly even forgery of documents. You need to report this to the authorities. I know, but I need to protect my father first. He's fragile. He can't go through police stress right now. Then let's do this. First, you immediately revoke the power of attorney your father gave your wife. Second, we gather all the evidence and present it all at once. Third, you prepare your father emotionally for what's ahead. Grant agreed. On the way back home, his mind was racing. How had he not noticed? How did he let Victoria have so much control? He remembered when he met her 5 years ago at a charity event. She was beautiful, charming, seemed genuinely interested in his work with social foundations. The marriage happened fast, maybe too fast. Arriving home, he found Maya in the garden, sitting on a bench, her hand over her already quite prominent belly. She looked tired, but there was a determination in her eyes that he had come to admire. How is my father? He asked, sitting beside her. Improving every day. Today he managed to walk to the bathroom by himself without support. It's significant progress. Maya, I need to thank you. If you hadn't paid attention, if you hadn't had the courage to investigate, my father could have. You don't need to thank me. I only did what any decent person would do. Grant looked at her, really seeing her for the first time. She wasn't just a hired nurse. She was a strong, brave woman who had risked her own safety to protect a vulnerable, elderly man. He felt something move in his chest, a feeling he couldn't name. When is the baby due? He asked gently. In 3 months. It's a boy. And the father? Maya looked away. He's no longer in my life. When he found out I was pregnant, he disappeared. Said he wasn't ready to be a father, that he had other plans. I'm sorry. I'm not. I'd rather raise my son alone than with someone who doesn't want him. She stood up, straightening her shirt. I'm going to see how Mr. Arthur is doing. Grant watched her enter the house, thoughtful. There was a dignity in her that Victoria, with all her sophistication and designer clothes, would never have. The next few days were a careful dance. Grant pretended everything was normal, while behind the scenes he gathered more and more evidence. The lawyer managed to get access to the medical records through a court order, and what they found confirmed Maya's worst suspicions. There were forged prescriptions, tampered medical reports, and even fake certificates from doctors who denied having signed such documents. Victoria had built an elaborate web of fraud, using Arthur's money to finance a luxurious lifestyle while leaving him to waste away with inadequate care. The final straw came on a Wednesday afternoon. Grant had an important video conference and was in his study with the door closed. Victoria, thinking she was alone with Arthur and Maya, decided to make her final move. Maya was in the old man's room, helping him do light physical therapy exercises, when Victoria entered without knocking. Her face was red with anger. You, she pointed at Maya, need to leave this house now. You're fired. Maya kept her calm. Mr. Harrison hired me. Only he can fire me. I am his wife. I am in charge of this house. You are in charge of what is yours. Mr. Arthur is not. Victoria stepped forward, grabbing Maya's arm tightly. You insolent girl! You think you can come here, a pregnant nobody with no family, and think you're better than me. Let go of me, Maya said with a firm voice, trying to pull away. Victoria. Stop. Arthur tried to get up from the bed, but he was too weak. You shut up! Victoria screamed at the old man. This is all your fault. If you weren't so stubborn, you wouldn't need any nurse at all. It was at that moment that Grant entered the room. He had heard the screams from the study and came running up. What he saw made him stop at the door in shock. Victoria was holding Maya's arm so tightly she was leaving red marks. The old man was sitting on the bed, visibly agitated and having difficulty breathing. Maya was trying to get free without hurting her belly, her eyes tearing up. Victoria, what are you doing? Grant's voice came out low, dangerously controlled. She let go of Maya immediately, the mask of anger being replaced by an expression of fake concern. Grant, thank God you're here. This woman was mistreating your father. I was just trying to protect him. That's not true, Maya exclaimed, rubbing her bruised arm. Son, Victoria is lying, Arthur said with a weak voice. Maya never mistreated me. It's Victoria who... Shut up, old man. Victoria lost her composure completely. You're nothing but dead weight in this house. You should have died months ago. The silence that followed was absolute. Grant went pale, unable to believe what he had just heard. What did you say? He asked, his voice trembling with contained fury. Victoria realized her mistake, but it was too late. I didn't mean that. I'm just stressed, tired of what? Of robbing my father, of mistreating him, of diverting his money while letting him waste away. Victoria's eyes widened. What are you talking about? Grant took a folder that was under his arm and threw it on the bed. Documents scattered, bank statements, photos Maya had taken, medical reports, everything. I'm talking about $230,000 diverted from my father's account. I'm talking about medications replaced by inadequate versions. I'm talking about physical abuse, emotional manipulation, and systematic fraud. Victoria went livid. She tried to grab the documents, but Grant was faster. It's no use. I have copies of everything. My lawyer has already filed a report with the district attorney. The police should be here any moment. You can't do this to me. I'm your wife. You are a criminal, and I never want to see you near my father again. That was when the doorbell rang. Maya went to the window and saw 2 police cars parked in front of the mansion. They're here, she said softly. Victoria panicked. She tried to run for the door, but Grant blocked the way. She pushed him hard, making him stumble. But before she could leave the room, Maya stepped in front of her. Get out of my way, Victoria screamed. No. The 2 women faced each other. Victoria, with all her anger and despair, against Maya, pregnant but firm in her determination to protect the one who had become part of her family. The police officers came upstairs, guided by Mrs. Gable. When they entered the room and saw the scene, they immediately took control of the situation. "Victoria Harrison?" one of the officers asked. "That's me," she answered, her voice breaking. "You're under arrest for embezzlement, document fraud, and elder abuse. You have the right to remain silent." As they put on the handcuffs, Victoria looked at Grant with pure hatred. "You're going to regret this. I'm going to destroy you." "The only person who was destroyed here was yourself," Grant answered, his voice firm. When they took Victoria away, silence returned to the room. Maya approached Arthur, who was crying silently. "It's over, Mr. Arthur. It's all over." "My son," the old man reached out his hand to Grant. "Forgive me for not telling you sooner. I was afraid, so ashamed." Grant knelt beside the bed and held his father's fragile hand. "There's nothing to forgive, Dad. The fault is mine for not noticing. But I promise that from now on, things are going to be different." Maya discreetly left the room, giving father and son space. She went down to the kitchen where Mrs. Gable was preparing tea. "Is it really over, Maya?" "It is, Mrs. Gable. Now he'll be able to truly recover." The cook hugged the younger woman, and there, in the kitchen of that mansion, two women cried with relief, because sometimes justice takes time, but when it arrives, it brings the possibility of new beginnings. Upstairs, Grant still held his father's hand, making silent promises never to leave him helpless again. And for the first time in a long time, he felt he was doing the right thing, protecting who truly mattered. The storm had passed, but what would come after that, no one could yet predict. The months following Victoria's arrest were a time of deep transformation for everyone in the mansion. The house, which before seemed to carry an invisible weight, gradually filled with a new lightness, as if the walls could finally breathe. Arthur, with proper and consistent care from Maya, began to show a recovery that surprised even the doctors. The oncologist in charge of the case, Dr. Henderson, was impressed during the follow-up consultations. "Mr. Arthur, I don't know what miracle happened here, but your exams are stable for the first time in months. The tumor hasn't grown. Some markers have even decreased. Keep doing what you're doing." What they were doing was simple but fundamental. True care, without negligence, without manipulation. Maya followed all medical instructions to the letter, administered the correct medications at the right times, ensured the elderly man ate properly, and most importantly, treated him with dignity and affection. Grant, for his part, had made drastic changes in his life. He drastically reduced his business trips, delegated more responsibilities to trusted managers, and started working from home whenever possible. He wanted to be present, to make up for the years of absence. The afternoons became a sacred ritual. Grant would go up to his father's room with an old chessboard they had kept in the attic, and the two would play game after game while talking about everything and nothing. About the times Arthur worked in the carpentry shop, about how he raised Grant alone, about regrets and second chances. "You know, son," the old man said on one of those afternoons, moving a pawn on the board, "I spent my whole life working to give you a better life, and I succeeded. You became a successful man. But now I realize that success isn't just money. It's being present. It's choosing the right people to have by our side." Grant looked at his father, his eyes tearing up. "I took a long time to learn that lesson, Dad. I almost lost you because of my blindness. But you didn't. And now we have time to recover what was left behind." Meanwhile, Maya's pregnancy advanced. Her belly grew, and with it, the bond between her and that unlikely family grew too. Mrs. Gable treated her like a daughter, always worried if she was eating well, resting enough. Arthur called her the daughter of my heart, and was already knitting a baby blanket with the cook's help. And Grant. Grant didn't quite know how to name what he felt. At first, it was gratitude for her courage in exposing Victoria. Later, it became admiration for her dedication to his father's care. But gradually it transformed into something deeper, more complex. He caught himself observing Maya when she didn't notice, the way she spoke softly to Arthur, how she hummed quietly while organizing the medications, how her hand unconsciously rested on her growing belly. There was a beauty in her that had nothing to do with physical appearance. It was something that came from within, a light that Victoria had never possessed. Maya also felt something changing. In the beginning, Grant was just the boss, the son of the patient she cared for. But as the days went by, she began to notice small gestures of care. The way he always asked if she needed anything, how he insisted she rest more, how he brought home a special ergonomic chair for pregnant women one day, without her asking. One rainy Thursday afternoon, Maya was on the back porch watching the rain fall in the garden. Grant found her there, lost in thought. "Can I sit down?" he asked. "Of course." They stayed in silence for a few minutes, just listening to the rain. It was Grant who finally spoke. "Maya, I wanted to apologize to you." She turned, surprised. "Apologize? For what?" "For bringing you into this whole situation. You were vulnerable, pregnant, needing help, and I put you in the middle of a war that wasn't even yours. Grant, you gave me a roof, a job, dignity. You have nothing to apologize for." "But you were threatened, assaulted, went through so much stress. That couldn't have been good for you or the baby." Maya smiled softly. "I've been through a lot in life, Grant. I lost my parents young, was raised by an aunt who didn't want me, worked since I was 15. I had bad relationships, was deceived, abandoned. But I also learned that difficult situations show what we're made of. And I discovered I'm stronger than I imagined." "You are incredible," he said without thinking, and then blushed slightly. "Sorry, I didn't—" "You don't need to apologize for speaking the truth." Their eyes met, and for a moment the world seemed to stop. There was something unspoken in the air, a connection that both felt, but neither had the courage to name yet. The moment was interrupted by Mrs. Gable, who appeared on the porch. "Maya, dear, Mr. Arthur is asking for you. Wants to know if there's reading today." Maya had started reading to the elderly man every night. They started with news from the paper, then moved to short stories, and now they were in the middle of a classic novel he had always wanted to read, but never had the time. "I'm coming, Mrs. Gable, thank you." She stood up with some difficulty, the weight of her belly. Grant immediately offered his hand to help her, and she accepted. When their fingers touched, both felt an electric current, but neither commented. The weeks passed, and the routine was established. Grant officially took over the divorce from Victoria, who was in prison awaiting trial. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Financial fraud, embezzlement, forgery, abuse. The lawyer said she would get several years in prison. With the recovery of the diverted money, Grant decided to do something significant. He looked for Maya one morning with a proposal. "Maya, I've been thinking. My father improved so much thanks to you. But how many people out there are going through what he went through? Elderly people being mistreated, having their assets diverted with no one to defend them. Many, unfortunately. Elder abandonment is more common than people imagine. What if we did something about it? Like a foundation or institute that offered qualified and free care for vulnerable seniors, that also provided legal follow-up to protect against abuse?" Maya's eyes lit up. "That would be incredible, Grant. But it's a lot of work, a lot of investment. I have money, I have contacts, and now I have time too because I decided I'm not going to live just to work anymore. But I need someone with medical knowledge, someone who truly understands what these seniors need. Someone like you. Grant, I'm going to have a baby in a few weeks. I don't know if I can take on a responsibility like that now. It doesn't have to be now, it can be in a year, 2 years, when you feel ready. But I want you to think about it, to know that you have a future here if you want. Not just as my father's nurse, but as a partner in something bigger." Maya was moved. For the first time in a long time, someone saw potential in her beyond her current circumstances. They saw not a pregnant, abandoned woman needing help, but a competent professional capable of making a difference in the world. "I'll think about it with love, I promise." The birth happened on a rainy morning in September. Maya started feeling contractions around 2 in the morning. Mrs. Gable, who slept in the room next door, heard her muffled moans and woke up immediately. Grant, wake up, it's the baby!" Grant came down running, still in his pajamas. He found Maya in the living room, breathing deeply, trying to control the pain. "I'm taking you to the hospital now," he said, already grabbing the car keys. "Take her bag too, it's in the closet," Mrs. Gable instructed, always practical. On the way to the hospital, Maya squeezed the car seat during the contractions. Grant drove fast but carefully, looking at her constantly. "It's going to be okay," he repeated like a mantra. "Everything is going to be fine." "I know," she said between breaths. "It's not my first labor." He looked surprised. "It's not? I lost a baby 3 years ago. He was born premature, didn't survive. That's why this one is so special. It's my second chance." Grant felt his heart tighten. How many pains had that strong woman already carried alone? The birth was long, but without complications. At 8 in the morning, Maya held a healthy boy in her arms, with dark hair and wide-open eyes, curious about the new world. "Hi, my love," she whispered, tears streaming down. "I finally get to meet you." Grant stayed outside the delivery room, anxious. When the nurse finally let him in, the scene he saw touched him deeply. Maya, tired but radiant, holding the baby with so much love, so much tenderness. "He's beautiful," Grant said, approaching. "Do you want to hold him?" He hesitated, but eventually accepted. When he took the baby in his arms, small and warm, he felt something transform inside him. That child wasn't biologically his, but in some way, he felt a connection, a desire to protect, to be present. "What are you going to call him?" Maya smiled. "Arthur, in honor of your father, who gave me the chance to start over." Grant had to swallow the lump in his throat. "My father will be very honored," and he was. When days later they took the baby to meet the old man, Arthur cried with emotion. "My namesake," he said with a choked voice, holding the baby with trembling but careful hands. "Welcome to the world, little one. You've arrived in a family that's going to love you very much." Maya looked around that room, seeing Grant, Arthur, Mrs. Gable all gathered around the baby, and realized she had found something she had looked for her whole life without knowing. A place where she belonged, people who truly cared, a family chosen by the heart and not by blood. And when her eyes met Grant's over the baby's little head, both smiled, knowing that was only the beginning of something much bigger, much deeper, that was still to come. 2 years had passed since that stormy night that changed all the lives in the Greenwich mansion. Time, that great transformer, had woven a new story over the scars of the past. Little Arthur, affectionately called AJ, was already running through the house with his short, fast legs, filling the hallways with laughter and discoveries. Arthur, the grandfather of the heart, had become his favorite shadow. The two could be seen together in the garden, the old man teaching the little one about plants, birds, about life. Against all medical expectations, Arthur's cancer went into remission. The doctors called it a miracle, but he knew it was the result of care, love, and the will to live. He had reasons to continue now. He wanted to see AJ grow up. He wanted to be present in the construction of the dream that his son and Maya were building together. The New Beginning Foundation, as they ended up naming it, had started small. A pilot project in a rented house in the neighborhood, with the capacity to welcome 5 seniors in vulnerable situations. Maya, even with a small toddler, dedicated a few hours a week to supervising medical care and training the nursing team. Grant took over the administrative and financial part, using his business contacts to get donations, partnerships with hospitals, and support from companies. But more than that, he was present. He visited the sheltered seniors, talked to them, listened to their stories. He had learned from his own father that time and attention were the most valuable gifts someone could give. Mrs. Gable also got involved, coordinating volunteers who prepared nutritious and homemade meals for the sheltered. Claire, the former nurse who had given the first warning, was hired as a care supervisor, finally able to practice her profession without fear of retaliation. The story of Maya and Arthur, of how she saved the elderly man from a scheme of negligence and fraud, hit the pages of local newspapers. The repercussion brought more donations, more volunteers, more people wanting to help. In just 1 year, the foundation already had 3 units operating in different neighborhoods. But not everything was simple. There were moments of doubt, of fatigue, of almost giving up. Maya especially struggled to balance motherhood, the work at the foundation, and the continuous care for Arthur. Grant noticed when she was overwhelmed and learned to give the necessary support. "Maya, you don't have to do everything alone," he said in one of those difficult moments, finding her crying in the kitchen late at night, exhausted after an impossible day. "I'm here. Let me help. I just want to do everything right. Be a good mother, a good professional, a good what?" She looked at him, her eyes wet. "I don't know anymore. I feel like I need to prove something, you know? Prove that it was worth believing in me." Grant held her face between his hands with tenderness. "Maya, you don't need to prove anything. You are already incredible. You are the strongest, most dedicated, most special woman I've ever known." It was at that moment, in that silent kitchen lit only by the light over the stove, that Grant finally said out loud what he had felt for months. "I love you." Maya's eyes widened, her heart racing. "What?" "I love you, Maya. I fell in love with you gradually without noticing. For your courage, for your kindness, for the way you take care of my father, how you love your son, how you want to change the world despite everything you went through. I love you, and I want to build a life with you. If you want." Tears streamed down her face, but now they were tears of happiness. "I love you too, Grant. For so long, but I was afraid of ruining everything, of you seeing me just as the nurse or as someone you helped out of pity." It was never pity. It was admiration from day one, and it turned into love without me being able to control it. They kissed there, in that kitchen that had witnessed so many conversations, so many coffees late into the night, so many dreamed plans. And when they pulled apart, both were smiling, light, as if an immense weight had been lifted from their shoulders. The marriage proposal came months later, on an ordinary day that Grant transformed into something extraordinary. He took Maya to the first house the foundation had rented, now transformed into a reference center, with a therapeutic garden and a living room. In the garden, under a tree they had planted together on the first day, he knelt down. "Maya Brooks, you taught me that family isn't about blood, it's about choice. That love isn't about perfection, it's about being present. That new beginnings are possible when we have courage. Will you marry me and continue building this story together?" She could hardly speak from so much emotion, only nodded her head vigorously while tears of joy fell. Yes, 1,000 times, yes. The wedding was simple but significant, in the house that now sheltered not only Grant, Maya, and AJ, but also Arthur and Mrs. Gable, who were part of that expanded family. The ceremony took place in the garden, with the seniors sheltered by the foundation as guests of honor, along with the small team that made the foundation work. Arthur, now 74 years old, but with more vitality than he had 2 years ago, was the one who walked Maya to Grant. His eyes shone with pride. "Take care of each other," he whispered to the couple, "and remember that love is built every day, in small choices, in simple gestures." Life followed its course, full of challenges, but also joys. The foundation continued to grow, impacting hundreds of lives. Grant further reduced his business commitments, delegating the management of the companies to dedicate himself fully to the social project. He discovered that he fulfilled himself much more helping people than closing million-dollar contracts. Maya went back to working part-time as an oncology nurse in one of the partner hospitals, but always reserving time for the family and the foundation. AJ grew up surrounded by love, learning from an early age about empathy, solidarity, and the importance of taking care of each other. Victoria was sentenced to 8 years in prison for aggravated fraud, embezzlement, and abuse. The divorce was finalized, and she signed an agreement giving up any rights to the couple's assets. Grant never visited her in prison. Some bridges, when burned, don't need to be rebuilt. One sunny Sunday afternoon, 5 years after that initial stormy night, the whole family was gathered in the garden. Arthur, now 77 years old, sitting in his favorite chair, watched AJ play with a wooden car that he himself had made, reclaiming his old carpentry skills. Maya was pregnant again, this time with a girl they had decided to call Audrey, keeping the tribute to the man who united them. Grant sat on the arm of her chair, his hand resting protectively over her belly. "Have you ever thought," Maya said thoughtfully, "how everything could have been different? If I hadn't fainted in front of the gate that day, if you hadn't come back early from the trip." "I think about that sometimes," Grant admitted. "But I believe some things were destined to happen. You needed help. My father needed you, and I needed to learn what truly matters in life." Arthur, listening to the conversation, smiled. "It wasn't destiny. It was choice. You both chose to do what was right, even when it was difficult. You chose to care, to fight, to love. And the right choices always bring good fruits." Mrs. Gable came out of the kitchen bringing a tray with juice and homemade cookies. "Look at this beautiful family," she said with affection. "Who would have thought, eh? From a night of storm, all this was born." And it was true. From the darkness of that rainy night, from the difficulties, from the painful revelations and necessary confrontations, something luminous and lasting had sprouted. Their family built not by chance, but by the conscious choice to care for each other. The New Beginning Foundation continued to impact lives, offering not only medical care and shelter, but dignity and hope to seniors who had been forgotten by society. Each life transformed was a victory. Each smile rescued was proof that it was worth continuing. Maya looked around, at the husband who loved her unconditionally, at the son who played happily, at the man who had become a second father, at the house that became a home. She thought about how much she had grown, how much she had fought to get there. And for the first time in many years, she allowed herself to feel completely at peace. Because stories of overcoming are not about never falling. They are about getting up as many times as necessary. They are about transforming pain into purpose and loneliness into family. They are about believing that after the storm, the calm always comes, and that even in the darkest moments, there is the possibility of a new beginning. As the sun set over the horizon, tinting the sky in shades of orange and pink, that unlikely but deeply connected family remained gathered in the garden, savoring the simplicity of being together. And in that simplicity, they found everything that truly mattered. Because in the end, life is not measured by material achievements or professional successes. It is measured by the bonds we build, the lives we touch, the love we choose to cultivate every day. And in that family was immensely rich. Little AJ ran to his grandfather, climbing onto his lap, with the naturalness of someone who knows that is his safe place. Arthur hugged him, kissing the top of the boy's head, his eyes closed in silent gratitude. Gratitude for being alive, for having found in Maya a daughter of the heart, for seeing his son truly happy, for being part of AJ's childhood and soon little Audrey's, for having lived long enough to see that sometimes the greatest blessings come disguised as storms. And as the night descended gently over that family, over that house, over that story of new beginnings and transformations, everyone there knew, in the depths of their hearts, that they had found something rare and precious, each other, and themselves in the process. If you believe that destiny can be rewritten, that love can flourish where it's least expected, and that even the greatest challenges can be overcome by those who cross paths in opposite worlds, then my stories have something to tell you. Come, dive into these tales of lives that meet and transform. The best is yet to come. And who knows, you might find yourself in one of them. I have been telling stories for a few years, and it is a pleasure to share each chapter, each emotion with you. If you liked it, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and leave in the comments the city from which you listen to these narratives. I would love to know where you come from and how my words reach you.